everybody, I'm Katallina, and today we're here to talk about episode 12 of Unnamed Memory. This week's episode seems to have the internet in an absolute frenzy, but personally, I'm actually doing pretty okay. And I honestly find that slightly shocking because this kind of ending, where normally I would feel like this kind of ending is they had a dream and they both woke up kind of ending, would normally really tick me off. But while I can see how some people are comparing what's happened here to that kind of ending, personally I didn't see it that way, and personally the stuff that happened in this ending actually made me really appreciate the two main characters a lot more than I have for the bulk of this series and how it's been doing. So that was actually a real plus. There's also the fact that the show has been announced to be getting another core in January 2025, so it'll be winter season. So that's something that definitely helps with what they've done here, because while this is the end of our current run, it is not the end of the story, and it'll be interesting to see exactly what they will do with this. But we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here. What actually happened? Well, in essence, Oscar sacrificed his very existence, potentially, in order to save Tinasha when an accident caused him to go back in time. And that's absolutely incredible, and we definitely need to break it down, because there is a lot here that's really interesting. First up, I mean, the fact that he's just casually going around her tower in present day and helping her clean it and everything. It's sort of the normal thing that couples do. I mean, I have disabilities. I can't tell you how many times Airgrim's helped me sort out my room. Of course, I don't have an orb in here that can actually make somebody go back through time, that I know of. But I mean, this actually happened to him, and he touched it, and all of a sudden it was like, whoop, and it was so crazy, because, like, she's running at him, trying to get him to stop, and she's, like, dropping the tea and everything, but he's gone. And I mean, it was an accident, but what makes it really interesting is actually everything that happens thereafter, and what he actually does with it. One of my biggest issues with Oscar throughout the course of this show has been the reality that he has constantly been pressuring Tinasha to marry him. Will you marry me? Will you marry me? Will you marry me? You get the idea. And I mean, I get it from his point of view. That's something he wanted. I mean, initially I didn't trust him, and I felt that it was more so just for the convenience of his kingdom. But I mean, she was just as bad about that, suggesting like that they find a child or something. That was like gross, man. But that was back in episode 1. So, I mean, that drove me up the wall. But what we see here is how much he's actually grown as an individual, because he didn't need to disappear. Actually, we see him get to this point in the story where he is in the Tudar treasury, and he has the orb that he touched at the start of the episode, and hypothetically he could go back, but he chooses not to. Because what he chooses to do instead, because he's in this timeline and he's in the past and everything, is he chooses to go and prevent Lanak from actually performing the ritual where Tinasha became a witch. And on one hand, I mean, tampering with time is always a big no-no, and there is always a price to pay. But at the same time, I mean, I get where he's coming from, and I was really moved in this one moment where he's looking at this orb, and he could hypothetically go back to his happy life. He could go back to the Tinasha from his own time. He could go back to the existence he's created for himself. He finally got what he wanted. He got the girl. He got her to marry him. They're living their life, etc. But what we learn here, not through something that he says specifically, but through what he does and what he decides, is just how much he actually does love her. Because he looks at the orb and he thinks about how happy they are and everything. And he thinks about the fact that no matter what I do, she's going to eventually find happiness. But then it hits him, 400 years is too long to wait to be able to experience happiness. And it is in that realization of what it means, potentially, to wait 400 years that it really hits him just what he would be asking of her by not stopping this thing from happening to her if he can. And I thought that was really incredible because, I mean, as I said, I've kept thinking about, like, does he really love her or does he love the idea of her? And I've gone back and forth on that. And I mean, I've gone back and forth on that from her end as well. And this episode is actually the thing that has finally truly convinced me at least on his end, that he loves her. And I mean, her sadness and everything, even in this brief period together, and even though she is young, actually shows that there is something between them. But it was really him who shone in this episode for me. And the fact that he could have gone back to everything being the way it was and the way he wanted it. And the fact that he was willing to give all of that up, and to even hypothetically give up himself to be able to prevent the kind of trauma that he knew she had gone through, was amazing. And I really love how they carried out the scene where he actually goes about helping her to be able to actually stop Lanak. And I like the fact that both of them are actually involved in the scene. He does do a lot of the heavy lifting with his sword skills and everything, but I mean, she has a part in it too. It's not like he takes away all of her agency and makes her completely useless or something like that. I thought that the balance between the two, and again, showing us something where the two of them have worked together, was really beautiful. And the ending, where he realizes he is going to fade away, where he's going to cease to be, and she's going to be by herself, is incredibly moving. And I mean, it's a tough call, because on one hand, there is the reality that he is going to be gone, and that's going to be because he saved her life, or at least he saved her from the life she was going to have. But at the same time, it's interesting to consider, was it better to leave her the way she was, knowing she's going to have that happiness 400 years later? Or is it better to leave her as she is now, where we don't know what kind of future she is actually going to have? And I mean, we also don't know what's going to happen to Oscar, which probably isn't a direct concern to him. His goal was saving her. But as a viewer who is neutral, of course, the question remains, what actually is going to happen? I mean, I wonder just how all the time travel theory of this story is going to pan out, because we kind of knew there was a time travel element to it, but it's not something that's been really clearly defined for us. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how they use it. I'm used to seeing time travel more so in science fiction than in fantasy, but I'm very intrigued to see exactly how it will go down here and what will actually happen moving forward. Overall though, I thought that this episode was quite solid, and I was quite impressed with how things went. I am definitely intrigued to see where we will go from here. I can empathize with anyone who is just absolutely devastated and who wishes that the show had just ended with the two of them getting married. But I think that given some of the things that were playing in the background and some of the things that we haven't had resolved yet in the main concepts of the story, are going to be much better served with this situation happening, and the knowledge, again, that we are getting a season 2 confirmed. So, what are you guys thinking about this? Did you like the episode, or did it make you mad? I'd love to know, so feel free to drop a comment below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Talk to you later. Bye!